There are literally only two places on planet Earth where divorce is completely, unequivocally illegal.
Just two.
Yeah, one of them is the Vatican, and the other, you ask, it is the Philippines. I mean, think about that for a second.
It is a pretty staggering fact when you first hear it.
It really is. And today, you and I are going on a deep dive into a really heavy stack of sources, primarily centered around this fascinating piece called Navigating the Labyrinth of Filipino Romance and Law.
Labyrinth is definitely the right word for it.
Oh, absolutely. And our mission for you today is to decode exactly how you date, how you mate, and how you actually survive in a romantic landscape where marriage is not just, a milestone. It is a literal, inescapable legal reality.
Right. It truly is a labyrinth. And to even begin to understand how a society gets to a point where the legal stakes of romance are just that high, you have to look at the historical foundation.
Right. Where does this all come from?
Well, the Philippines is just an incredibly unique cultural landscape. You are looking at a society that has taken over 300 years of traditional, deeply conservative Spanish Catholicism.
Which is heavy on its own.
Exactly. And then layered it directly on top of ancient indigenous tribal values of community survival.
Wow.
Yeah. And then on top of all that, they just sprinkled modern American media influences all over it. So the resulting dynamic is entirely its own thing.
I have to admit, reading through these sources, I was dramatically overwhelmed. It is a genuine culture shock.
Oh, I'm sure it is for any outsider.
Yeah, because as an outsider, you think you understand the basic mechanics of how dating works, and then you read this and realize you are basically walking blindfolded into a minefield.
That is a very accurate way to put it.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before you can even think about romance or getting into a relationship there, you have to survive what the sources describe as an initial gauntlet.
It's a gauntlet, yes.
Like you do not just go on a date, right?
Yeah.
You enter a community trial.
That is exactly the mechanism at play here. Because if you look at Western cultures, a first date is deeply individualistic.
Right, it is just two people.
Exactly. It is an isolated event. You meet someone at a coffee shop or restaurant, and the two of you basically feel each other out in a vacuum.
Right, just seeing if there's a vibe.
But in the Philippines, that individualism takes a massive backseat to collective security.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you invite a woman out, you might expect a romantic one-on-one dinner, only to find that she has brought her sister, her cousin, or maybe her best friend, to sit right there at the table with you.
Sit at the table.
Right there at the table. This chaperone system is known as pasama.
Pasama.
Mm.
Oh, man, I just pictured showing up to a dinner with like a single red rose and suddenly realizing I have to make awkward small talk with the cousin while trying to be charming.
It happens all the time to unsuspecting foreigners.
But when you explain it, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
It is a built-in safety and comfort mechanism, right? It is there to ensure the suitor has honorable intentions.
Precisely. And it protects the woman's social reputation in a highly observant community. But the gauntlet does not stop with the chaperone.
Oh, right, there is more.
You also have to pass the group dating filter.
Right, the friends. I was reading about this. So you hang out in these larger group settings before you're even officially a couple.
Yes, exactly.
And if her close-knit group of friends does not approve of you, the relationship simply does not move forward. It is just over.
Yes, and that group is called the barkada. It is a heavily weighted social circle.
The barkada. I actually love that concept, to be honest.
It is very effective.
Because dating here is not a one-on-one sport. It is a heavily refereed team sport where you are constantly being scouted by the defense.
That is a great analogy. And what is fascinating here is how these mechanisms work. The pasama, the barkada, they are deeply rooted in those indigenous community values we mentioned earlier.
The tribal survival stuff.
Right. They prioritize social harmony and collective safety way over your personal desire for a quick romance.
That makes a lot of sense.
You are not just an individual seeking another individual. You are a community member auditioning to integrate with another community.
An audition, yeah.
And that audition is a formal drawn-out process called ligza.
Liga, the courtship.
Mm.
And the source makes it extremely clear that this is not casual.
Not at all.
Like, you do not just hang out, watch some movies, and eventually have the talk about being exclusive.
Yeah.
Liga is a formal period where the suitor has to actively prove his worth, his consistency, and his dedication.
Yes, and that can take a long time.
Right. Often for weeks or months before he even earns the title of boyfriend.
And while you are in this liga phase, you are navigating incredibly strict no-touch expectations.
Well, the rules on physical touch?
Yes. Yeah. While the modern urban centers like Manila are shifting slightly, traditional circles and provincial areas still heavily frown upon public displays of affection.
Right, like holding hands.
Holding hands might be okay eventually, but heavy kissing or touching in public, that invites deep judgment.
Which is wild to me. Because on one hand, there's this strict modesty where you cannot be affectionate in public.
Right.
But then on the other hand, there is this absolute brutal, radical honesty. I actually laughed out loud reading this part of the source material.
Physical comments. Yeah.
Yes, because if you are casually talking to the family or the barkada, people will just bluntly comment on your physical traits.
Very bluntly.
They will literally look at you and say you gained weight. Or they will comment on exactly how much money you make right to your face.
Yes, and to someone from the U.S. or the U.K., that feels like a highly inappropriate targeted insult.
I would evaporate on the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, if I sat down on a date and the cousin from the Pasama looked at me and said my face looked chubby, I would literally just walk into the ocean.
I totally understand that reaction, but you have to understand the intent behind it.
Okay, what is the intent?
In their culture, it is treated purely as an observable fact. It is not meant to tear you down at all. It is an acknowledgement.
So it is like a weird compliment.
It is them showing that they notice you, that you are familiar enough to them to warrant observation in the first place.
Okay, so let's say you survive all of this. You pass the courtship obstacle course. The barkada gives you a thumbs up. You endure the observations about your weight, and you finally secure the title of partner.
Congratulations, you made it.
Right. But this total integration into the partner's family is not just about emotional harmony. It completely flips how you communicate.
Yes, it changes everything.
Because that team that vetted you suddenly becomes your permanent ecosystem. You do not just marry the person, you marry the entire family.
It is absolute integration, the concept of the package deal.
The package deal, right.
In the West, we often view a relationship as a walled garden between two people, right? The outside world is kept at bay.
Yeah, it is private.
But in the Philippines, parents, aunts, and siblings frequently have an active voice in your major life choices.
That sounds overwhelming.
It can be. Where you spend the holidays, your career moves, how you raise your kids, it is a collective family discussion.
And the communication styles within this collective, wow. I want to talk about how conflict is handled because it is so different from what you might expect.
It is very subtle.
Yeah, when someone is upset, they do not sit down and say, hey, we need to talk about what you did. They do this emotional withdrawal thing, pouting.
Yeah.
The silent treatment.
Yes, you are referring to tampo. It is a crucial cultural phenomenon to understand. Tampo is a nonverbal emotional withdrawal.
And the wild part is the expectation placed on the partner. You were supposed to intuitively figure out what you did wrong without them telling you.
Exactly. You have to read the room.
And then you have to coax them out of it. There's a specific word for that coaxing, right?
Yes, amyun, to gently coax.
Okay.
Usually through sweet gestures, bringing them their favorite food or persistent affection to restore the balance.
Right.
Now, to a Westerner, this looks like passive-aggressive manipulation. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at the core cultural concept of pakikisama.
Pakikisama meaning social harmony, right?
Exactly. Maintaining smooth interpersonal relationships. In a culture that prioritizes pakikisama above almost everything else, direct, loud confrontation is viewed as deeply destructive.
Oh, so yelling is just completely out.
It causes a huge loss of face for everyone involved. So tampo is not malicious manipulation. It is a highly evolved way to signal distress without shattering the fragile harmony of the family unit.
That actually makes a lot of sense when you put it that way.
And if a conflict becomes too raw or shameful, the sources note that people might just vanish entirely.
Ghosting. They just block the number and disappear because the raw shame of a face-to-face breakup is too socially destructive. That just blew my mind.
It is a self-preservation tactic.
But there's another aspect of this communication that I really want to push back on. The sources mention this hyper-possessiveness.
Ah, yes, the transparency.
Right. It is culturally normal for partners to have full, unhindered access to each other's phones, social media accounts, and passwords.
Yeah, total act.
Sometimes a friend even tracks their location on a date. Now, I have to be honest, handing over all my passwords and having a partner track my GPS, does that not just sound like toxic control and deep insecurity?
I completely understand why it sounds like toxic surveillance through a Western lens, because the West values individual privacy as a fundamental human right.
Yeah, It is a huge boundary.
But in this context, that behavior, often referred to as being celosa or jealous, is framed differently.
Soluso.
It is not about malicious surveillance or a lack of trust at all. It is viewed as a baseline of transparency.
So for anyone listening who gets incredibly annoyed when their partner just glances over their shoulder at a text message, imagine a culture where demanding phone privacy is seen as a literal betrayal of the relationship.
Exactly. To hold back a password is to hold back a part of yourself from the union.
Wow.
Privacy is not seen as a right. It is
Yeah.
seen as a barrier to total integration and commitment.
Okay, that makes sense when you view it through the lens of total integration. But this integration is not just emotional.
Not at all.
It is an economic necessity because of how the society is structured. If you marry the family, you are marrying their balance sheet. Let's talk about the financial obligations, because this part of the source material was incredibly heavy.
It is the stark reality of the breadwinner expectation. You have to remember the socioeconomic context of the Philippines here.
Right.
It lacks the robust state-funded social safety nets that many Westerners just take for granted. There is no universal elderly care, no comprehensive unemployment net, and no livable pension for the vast majority of the population.
So the children become the retirement fund and the emergency fund.
Yes, exactly.
Reading the data and the sources, I felt this overwhelming empathy for the crushing weight placed on young adults.
It is a massive burden.
You have young professionals working in Manila or even overseas sending massive chunks of their income back home to pay for a younger cousin's college tuition or an uncle's hospital bill or just basic groceries for their parents.
And they do this because of an unbreakable psychological and cultural tie called utang na loob.
Utang na loob, the debt of gratitude.
Yes. It translates roughly to an inner debt. Children feel an endless, unpayable debt to their parents simply for giving them life and raising them.
Just for existing.
Right. So if a parent or an extended family member requests financial help, saying no is not just a simple budgeting decision.
It is way deeper than that.
It carries an immense, agonizing load of cultural guilt and familial shame. You are failing your utang na loob.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, and I think this is the best way to conceptualize it for an outsider.
Go ahead.
It is like the family is not just a family. It is a private mutual fund. Every child is a shareholder. When you get a job, you pay into the fund.
That is a very accurate way to look at it.
And your dividends are not wealth, right?
Mhm.
Your dividends are literal survival. If one person falls sick or loses a job, the fund catches them.
That is a brilliant analogy, and it perfectly explains the mechanism at work. Utang na loob is a beautiful, unbreakable safety net in a country where the government will not catch you if you fall.
Yeah.
It is collective survival through financial enmeshment.
But wait, I have to admit some confusion here. We are talking about a deeply traditional, heavily Catholic society. You would assume that the financial control leans patriarchal.
You would assume that, yes.
But the sources say something completely different about who actually handles the money in the household.
You are referring to the matriarchal wallet. This is a fascinating divergence from traditional Western patriarchal structures.
So interesting.
In Filipino households, even if the man is the sole or primary breadwinner, the wife almost always manages the entire budget.
She is the CFO of the mutual fund.
Exactly. She is the CS.
She takes the paycheck. She
Yeah.
distributes the daily allowances. She pays the tuition, and she controls the savings accounts. It is a profound level of financial trust and female empowerment within the domestic sphere.
It is, but as the source material points out, while the financial rules are very clearly codified and respected, the way these new families are actually formed reveals a massive, baffling contradiction in the society.
A total paradox.
Right.
Because on the surface, as we have discussed, you have this conservative facade.
Very conservative.
An ultra-modest nation where public displays of affection are taboo, where chaperones are required, and where talking openly about intimacy is deeply frowned upon.
Yes.
But underneath that, the reality behind closed doors is completely different.
The sources highlight a significantly high rate of unplanned teen pregnancies, which creates a deep cognitive dissonance within the culture.
The data presented in the sources here is just devastating. You have a dating pool with a very high prevalence of young single mothers.
It is very common.
And it outlines that this is largely due to a severe lack of reproductive health education, a lack of legal options, and a tragic pattern of local ex-partners who flee accountability when a pregnancy happens.
Yes, it is a harsh reality.
These young women are left holding the bag financially and emotionally,
Yeah.
facing immense societal judgment, while the men often just vanish, Makes me so angry.
It is a heavy reality, and it raises an incredibly important question regarding that cognitive dissonance you mentioned.
Yeah.
How does a deeply ingrained religious modesty directly fuel this crisis? Well, when a society heavily stigmatizes open, practical conversations about safe sex, it creates a void of education and boundaries.
Because nobody is talking about it.
Exactly. This ironically leads to the very single mother phenomenon that the society then turns around and stigmatizes.
It is a devastating cycle.
Oh.
And the sources explain that this stigma extends directly to contraception.
Oh, absolutely.
There's intense cultural awkwardness around simply buying condoms or birth control pills at a local pharmacy. You literally get judgmental stares from the cashier.
Yes, it is heavily judged.
And navigating safe sex means women often have to fight through deep cultural awkwardness, battling local reproductive myths, and dealing with partners who outright refuse to use protection.
It is an incredibly fraught environment to navigate. And this brings us to the ultimate crescendo.
Okay.
If a couple navigates all of this, the Pasama Gauntlet, the complex Tampo communication, the mutual fund of family finances, the societal taboos, and they actually decide to tie the knot.
Oh boy, here we go.
They are entering an institution with the absolute highest, most terrifying legal stakes on the planet.
It all kicks off with the formal asking. I want to make sure I say this right. Pamamanhikan.
Pamamanhikan, yes, that is perfect.
The groom and his family have to formally visit the bride's family home. They bring a feast of food, and they explicitly ask the parents for her hand in marriage.
Yes, it is a very big event.
But it is not just a romantic gesture, like you see in the movies, right? They sit at the table and openly negotiate wedding logistics, budgets, and family expectations right then and there. It's basically a corporate merger.
It is exactly a corporate merger of those two mutual funds we discussed. But the real stakes, the truly staggering legal realities, they come after the wedding.
Which brings us back to the hook of this entire deep dive. The Philippines, alongside the Vatican, is the only place in the world where divorce is completely illegal.
It simply does not exist in the civil code.
It does not exist at all. Once you are married, you are legally bound indefinitely.
Indefinitely, yes.
Getting married under those conditions, it is a mind-bending level of commitment. I mean, getting married here is like jumping out of an airplane. But there's absolutely no reserve parachute.
No parachute at all.
You are legally strapping yourself to another human being in free fall. If the marriage fails, if it becomes toxic or abusive, your only legal recourse is something called an annulment.
And we need to be very clear on how an annulment differs from a divorce.
All right, what is the difference?
A divorce dissolves a valid marriage. An annulment seeks to prove to a judge that the marriage was void from the very beginning.
So you pretend it did not happen.
You are essentially trying to prove that the marriage never legally existed in the first place.
And to do that, the source says couples often have to hire psychiatrists to cite psychological incapacity in one of the partners just to prove they were unfit to marry.
Yes, it is a grueling process.
The process is agonizingly expensive. It can take years, and it is highly uncertain because a judge can simply say no. You are basically trapped.
And this legal lock-in becomes profoundly perilous for a foreigner when you combine the lack of divorce with the property laws.
Oh, the property laws, this is huge.
This is a crucial detail from the sources. A foreign citizen cannot legally own land outright in the Philippines.
Right. Even if you bring your life savings and buy a beautiful house with your Filipino wife, the land titles must remain in her name as the citizen.
Exclusively in her name, yes.
So put all the pieces together here. She manages the matriarchal wallet.
Yeah.
There is no divorce, and your name is not on the land.
It's a very precarious position.
In the event of a bitter breakup, a foreign partner is profoundly legally vulnerable. They can find themselves completely locked out of real estate properties that they entirely funded with zero legal recourse to split the assets.
It creates a power dynamic that heavily favors the local citizen legally. From the state's perspective, this is a protectionist measure to keep land in the hands of Filipinos, which is completely understandable historically.
Yeah, that makes sense from a national perspective.
But for an uninformed outsider navigating this romantic labyrinth, it is a massive blind spot.
It is staggering, honestly. And even if the marriage is happy, the daily reality has elements that shock outsiders, like the kasambahay.
The domestic helper or nanny?
Yes, the source mentions that middle to upper class marriages heavily rely on stay-in helpers. They clean, they cook, they help raise the children.
It is very standard.
For someone coming from the U.S. or Europe, where full-time live-in domestic help is an extreme luxury reserved for the ultra-wealthy, Seeing how normalized and integrated a kasambahay is into daily household management is a massive culture shock.
It is entirely normalized and considered an essential part of keeping a professional household running. And finally, you have the external social pressures on the marriage, particularly regarding the barangay.
The barangay meaning the local community or neighborhood.
Yes, the immediate community.
The sources outline this intense social pressure to host massive lavish celebrations for birthdays, baptisms, and local fiestas. You are basically expected to feed the entire neighborhood.
Everyone is invited.
And couples will sometimes fund these massive parties using utang borrowed money just to save face and show generosity to the community.
It ties right back to pakikisama, maintaining harmony, and utang na loob. You are expected to share your blessings with the collective, even if it causes you immense secret financial strain behind closed doors.
Wow.
The community's perception of your generosity often outweighs your personal financial logic.
Okay, let's take a breath. So what does this all mean? If we look at everything we have unpacked today from these sources, navigating Filipino romance truly is a labyrinth.
It really is.
It is a world of profound, beautiful respect for family community and collective survival. But it's also a world of heavy, crushing financial obligations, stunning cultural paradoxes regarding intimacy, and an inescapable, terrifying legal gravity if you choose to put a ring on it.
It certainly requires walking in with your eyes wide open, but I would like to leave you with a lingering thought that builds on everything we have discussed today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing these foreign relationship rules. Having a chaperone on a first date, handing over your phone passwords, navigating a system with no divorce. And it is so easy to view them as shocking or extreme.
Because they are so different from what we know.
Right. But looking this closely at the intricacies of the Filipino system should force you to turn the mirror around. Think about your own dating culture. What unspoken, potentially entirely absurd rules do you blindly accept as normal just because you grew up with them?
That is such a good question. What wild rules are you following right now without even realizing it? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, keep looking for those unseen rules, and we will catch you next time.